Hey, what is going on, guys? It's the SS Ultimate Goku back with another video to talk about something that, guys, was revealed today that just kind of puts me on the whole belief of what I've thought for a while now, that Winter Schnee is the Winter Maiden. So, I know a lot of people, again, this is my theory, but I made a theory like about a year ago after the whole, the Spring Maiden thing was revealed. Okay? So, you guys can go check that out, And, so, in episode 2 of Volume 7 of RWBY, as we all know, in this episode, they kind of reveal something that kind of makes people think that Winter is not the Winter Maiden, and it kind of rules a lot of people out. But I watched this episode, and I thought the opposite. So, Rooster Teeth likes to, troll us a little bit when it comes to the contents of the way their storylines are being set up. They did this already multiple times leading up to the previous Maiden and the story arcs. So my whole take on this is, so when they talk about the Maidens and how Winter Maiden, how she's safe, right? They have her protected and whatnot. Crow goes on and says, she's not some spring chicken anymore, implying that the Winter Maiden is old. Okay, is someone that's old, right? Here's the thing. From the last Maiden that was revealed, which ultimately ended up being Raven, Crow knew who the Maiden was. He knew who the Maiden was, right? He knew who it was. And yet, Salem and all the villains knew pretty much what Crow knew, who the Spring Maiden was. And it wasn't Raven. They just had intel that Raven was concealing and training the Spring Maiden. That's what they knew. That's what they thought. That was their intel. They never knew that Raven had murdered that person, as we found out later in the arc. For spoilers for an unfortunate soul that hasn't watched it yet, but it's been over a year now, so you should have by now. It's on free on roosterteeth.com. So, yeah. Anyways, so the thing is they already knew. They already knew the intel about who the Spring Maiden was, but yet they didn't know that that person had been killed and that Raven had taken over. Raven had been the Maiden for several decades. Well, maybe not several decades, at least over 10 years, maybe longer than that, because Raven is obviously much older, as we all know, because, she has a kid that's in her teenager years, or late teenager years, so she had to have had it, actually, no, close to 20 years. She had to have had it for at least close to 20 years, or at around 20 years, okay? She had to have been the Spring Maiden, okay? So, Raven had been keeping this dormanted for years. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, she wore a mask. She wore a mask. That's how she hid her powers all this time, right? Here's the thing, though. She hid her powers, right, from people by using the mask on certain events. But the thing is she can't hide everything, because obviously the Maiden powers are very, very special and unique. So she wouldn't be able to hide everything from her. Also, there is no requirement for the Maiden powers to be used all the time. It's just like with any type of power. You don't have to use it all the time. Now, obviously, let's go into Winter right now. Winter obviously is strong on her own front without the Maiden powers. So she can hold her own. She doesn't necessarily need the powers to establish herself. Right? But the issue comes back to is she the Winter Maiden to protect the burden of everyone in humanity? Think about it for this effect. It's called the protection. It's the protection symptom. Winter being the maiden makes the most sense. If it is true, and it is implied by Crow that to his understanding that the Winter Maiden is someone that's old because he said spring chicken, that means it's somebody probably old. This could imply that the person who was the Winter Maiden that is old, right, died of natural causes, was passed away, but before she passed away, because as we all know, the way the law of the maiden thing works is it goes to the next woman or whatever. It goes to the next woman if you die, but if you see the person that you're most closest to or you're thinking of in that moment you pass away, it goes to that person. And to me, if this old person, right, if we were going to assume and take Crow's word for value here into context that it was an old person, it was an old lady, what if she at some point, whether it be a year from now, maybe even recently, maybe from like just a couple of months ago, who knows, maybe she was like, you know what, I'm going to die, and the way the war is right now, Winter, you are much more equipped to hold this power than I am. And she gets the powers transferred. Now, I believe Winter is like, I think she's like 21. She's in her early 20s. So, she isn't that old. Okay, she's pretty young, actually. She's a young adult. Okay. So, I don't exactly know what the official age limit is, but we do know that Raven, when she had the powers, she was probably in her early 20s too. So it doesn't necessarily mean that someone that's a young adult can't have the maiden powers. So I think Winter has gotten the powers because the person died of natural cause and transferred the powers to Winter, and they did it in very secret, because obviously, as we know, Salem, Cinder, all those villains had no knowledge of who the maidens were. They knew just as much as Crow did, okay? So, they didn't know about Raven being the maiden. They didn't know anything about that. So, that to me implies that if the villains don't know who the maidens were without any concrete confirmation officially seeing Raven as the maiden, then the same thing could happen here with Winter being the Winter Maiden. It makes absolute sense. And when you think about it, it would make a lot of logical sense. Now, a lot of people will be like, well, she is basically, if she is the Winter Maiden, she's putting herself in harm by being one of the, Ironwood's, right-hand man in the, in the Atlas, military. But it actually would make sense because they don't know that Winter is the maiden. They don't know that she's the maiden. Winter has never used her powers. If she has never used her powers, then the villains can't know that Winter is in fact the maiden. And by that logic right there, she is essentially protecting herself because she can hold her own. She can hold her own against a lot of, people. As we all know, she's one of the strongest characters in the RWBY universe. At the same time, she is now protecting the city, but at the same time, she's concealing the secret And as long as she doesn't use the Maiden powers, which she has yet to use, she is protecting everybody. Because the moment she uses the powers, Cinder, Salem, all those people are going to know that she's the Maiden. So that's why she's not going to do it. Now, there could be scenarios where Ironwood might not even know. Winter might have, done it without Wood's knowledge, or, that she passed away and then just gave the powers to her. Or Ironwood does know. Ironwood does know, but he's the only one that knows, because obviously this is going to be something that they're going to tell everyone else, because they don't want this getting out. They don't want this getting out. They're not going to tell RWBY. They're not going to tell anybody this. And I know a lot of people are like, well, he trusted him with the relic. Trusted RWBY with the relic that he gave back to her. But at the same time, a lot of people are saying, well, there might be some trust there. They're still waiting to gain that trust. But the thing is I think this is going to be the most juiciest thing to find out. Now, again, I could be wrong. I'm not going to say that I'm not wrong about this, because, again, there's still a possibility that we could just end up seeing another old lady character being introduced. But knowing Rooster Teeth and knowing RWBY and learning about how they do this stuff, you have to really think outside the box. I think, because, like I said, the whole thing with Vernal being the Spring Maiden was something that I truly thought she was the Maiden. The way they hinted at it, the way they set that whole thing up, the whole season, I thought she was the Spring Maiden. And me and a lot of people, I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of people, we got fooled. What can I say? We got bamboozled on that one. And that's one of the things that Rooster Teeth does, I think, to try and fool people into thinking one thing over the other. Probably one of the one of the more better traits that they do, is kind of trying to think outside the box and try to fool people, and knowing that that's what Rooster Teeth does. That's why I'm kind of buying into this more, that they might be trying to hint at something with... They might be trying to hint at something that isn't actually there. Hinting at something that isn't actually there, and it's right in front of us. I mean, if you also think about it, who was the first person that responded to the Maiden comment? What's going on with me? It was Winter. It wasn't Ironwood. It was Winter. What's that whole thing? Go back to the scene of the crime? Well, Winter is going back to the scene of herself being it without telling anybody. And that's what I'm saying right now. I think it is, and it also makes sense to Winter's character, because Winter, if you think about it, think about like a couple, I think it was a couple volumes ago when they showed that that short of Winter training Weiss. Think about that. Go back to that. Go back to that training session that she did. Okay? Trying to get Weiss ready. Trying to get her, training her, and her being better for herself. That could be also a sign, too. Winter might be someone who's probably the most in danger than we think. She's always training herself, but at the same time, she's pushing everybody else. She's being hard-nosed to Weiss all the time when she trained her. That could be a reason to why she wants her to be ready. She wants herself to be ready. And that's why she pushes herself. And that's why she pushes everyone else. That's why she pushes people's buttons like Crow and whatnot. Is she wants them all to take this seriously. When it comes to RWBY, it's always usually the least person you expect. And that's what I think they're doing here. And so that's what I think. I think Winter is the Maiden. And again, it could come out later that I'm wrong. Again, I go by the actual episodes being released later, like when they actually pop up for everyone to see, not the first member. I don't have a first membership, so if I end up being wrong and someone sees this video later on after the publishing date, please don't like reveal it until like it comes available for everybody to see, because like, you know, that's how I kind of go by when it comes to this. But like I said, if I'm wrong, you know, it is what it is. But based on what I've seen and what I've seen in the past, I'm really thinking that they're trying to fool us, and they're trying to fool us into a different direction, and I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it this time, Rooster Teeth. I think you're trying to fool us here, and I think Winter is the Winter Maiden. I think they're really trying to fool us here. So yeah, this is kind of my theories. Like I said, they did this last season with Vinal. They fooled us with that whole thing. And I think they're trying to do it again. It would make the most logical sense, because it's like, you know, are you really just going to have just some random new character that's an old lady being the Maiden, like, that we don't know anything about, you know, without any development, unless they introduce this character, like in the next couple of episodes, like they actually show her and show her development. I'm not buying for a second that that's the Maiden. I'm not going to take just Crow's little word and Winter's word for it. Like, until I see an actual person, like they did with Amber, okay? Unless I see something like that, I'm not buying that it's some random new character that we haven't seen yet, okay? Maybe it's one of the people from the Academy, you know, that was just introduced in this episode, but otherwise, no, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying that it's going to be some random character that we haven't seen before all of a sudden just pop up in the middle of the season, and it's like, yeah, here you go, this is your Winter Maiden. No, she's in a vault, you know, protected. It's like, okay, can we see her? We couldn't see the freaking Spring Maiden until it was revealed. You know, we were all implying that it was Vinal, but it ended up not being that. So it's like, unless they, in the next couple episodes, they show her, I'm not buying it. Because they did this before, guys. They did this before to us. I believe they're trying to distance ourselves from something even greater that's going to come out later. I think Winter Schnee is the Winter Maiden. Let me know what you guys think. Do you agree with my theory? What do you guys think? Let me know what you think about this, or maybe there's someone else that's in the RWBY universe right now that we've seen that you think it could be. But this is who I think it is, and I'm sticking to it, guys, until I am factually 100% proven wrong. When we actually see who the Winter Maiden is, this is who I'm convinced it is. Let me know what you guys think. Comment, rate. If you like this video, my reviews, please subscribe. And that's about it, guys. Also, again, if you subscribe to, also click the notification bell thing for all the latest contents like this and others. And also, I do have a Discord chat where we can chat and do some fun stuff, discussions and all that stuff. So yeah, that is about it. I am out. I'm the SS Ultimate Goku. I'm out of here. Peace!